Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about deployment pipelines. Now, deployment pipelines has been available in Microsoft Fabric for a while now, and in the last few months, a few more updates has been added, which includes deployment rules and ability to update parameters. Let's take a look at this and see how useful this can be. Now, here I am in my development workspace, and let's say I have a few different artifacts that I'm working with. I have a couple of different data flows. One is a data flow created from Gen 1, and the second one is Gen 2 data flow. And then I also ingest data using a notebook and a pipeline. And all this data goes into my lakehouse. And then I also have a semantic model, which connects to this lakehouse, which is built out of this lakehouse. And I have a report as well, which connects to this semantic model here. Now, to deploy this, let's say I'm done with development, I want to move this to my test and production workspaces. I can use deployment pipelines. So this is where you go to do the deployment pipelines. I already have set it up, but if you would like to set up a new one, you can click on new pipeline, give it a name, and then you can set up or customize your different stages. And by default, you have the typical 3 stages: dev, test, and prod. But sometimes you have a stage environment or something in between, or sometimes you might just move from development to production. So based on your scenario, you can customize the different stages. Now, since I already have a deployment pipeline set up, let's jump into it. Here I have set it up to move from dev to test, and I've not set up this yet. Eventually, once my testing is good, I can select a production workspace and assign the workspace. All right, so let's say now in my development workspace, this means it's already in sync. But if I do make a change to any of the artifacts in my development workspace, I can come in here and click on deploy, which moves all the artifacts over to test. Also, I can see all the different artifacts that are available, which can be moved into test. And if I click on deploy, you'll notice that my data flow, which is of Gen 2, that is not supported currently in deployment pipelines. Okay, so out of the box, that is not. And if we do go into Microsoft's documentation, we see all the different artifacts that are supported. Pipelines, data flow, only Gen 1 is supported, Gen 2 is not. And a bunch of the other ones are in preview. Notebooks is completely supported. So is semantic model. Semantic model is in preview as well. But so most of them is in preview. It's just the data flow Gen 1 and reports and notebooks. Those are the 3 which are not in preview. Everything else is in preview. So let's keep that in mind as we go through this exercise. So what I did was I went in and made a change to my data flow Gen 1. And when I do make the change, you'll notice this. Previously, it was a green check mark stating that both the development and test environments were in sync, but now it's not. So I can use this little icon here. If I compare, it'll show me what changed. And then I can go ahead and deploy this. Once I deploy, again, it's just a warning that my Gen 2 is not supported. And I can go ahead, add some notes as to what changed here and click on deploy. It'll push the updates over to my test environment or workspace. Okay, now that it's deployed, let's go to the test workspace and see what actually got deployed, right? I'm in the test workspace right now. And so my test workspace is called DevOps_test. And we are in the lineage view just to make so that it's easy to see the flow, right? So if you notice here, my pipeline does connect to, or let's take a step back. There is LH DevOps and there is LH DevOps, 2 of them. And the one below here is still, this is from my DevOps, which is my development workspace. So that still shows up here. And there is one here. This is the one that is in the current workspace, which is my test workspace. So when I did deploy, the data pipeline now automatically connects to the lakehouse in the test environment. And so does, of course, the SQL endpoint and semantic model, the default semantic model automatically gets updated. It does connect to the lakehouse, which is in the test workspace. The notebook gets updated as well. So the default, when we create a notebook, we can always set a default lakehouse. So it got updated, the default lakehouse got updated to the one that is in test environment. So that's good. But if I scroll down, as we notice, the semantic model still connects to the lakehouse that is in my dev workspace. And of course, the report, because of the semantic model, it also connects to the lakehouse in dev workspace. Of course, a couple of other things. My Gen 2, the Gen 1 data flow, I would like to change the connection on that. Let's see if that's an option, because when I was working in my dev, I connected to a dev database. When I moved to test, I want to change the connection on my data flow on Gen 1 to a different database. Similarly, I want to change the pipeline as well to connect to a database which is a test database when similar to my data flow Gen 1. So let's see if that's possible. So let's go back to the to the deployment pipeline, and in the deployment pipeline, on the test section here, you see this little icon. If I click on that, it opens up the deployment rules dialog. Now, if I click on data pipeline, right now there is nothing supported here. Notebooks, it is supported, and it all, like we noticed, it already switched over to the default lakehouse. So I don't really need to set anything here. Data flow Gen 1, like just to note again, Gen 2 is not supported, only Gen 1 is supported. I can update the database rules. So here I can choose a new development of test SQL Server. So when I do the deploy, it automatically uses this data source rules to update the data source. Similarly, there is parameter rules as well, which we can use to set any other parameters. Let's say in dev, we bring in only 1,000 rows of data, but in test, we want to bring the full data set or something along those lines. We can use those parameters, which is available in Gen 1. So those are the different, and let's see, the last one, we missed semantic model. So what can I set up here? Again, I can change the data source rules here. So semantic model, like we noticed, it still connects to the lakehouse that is in development. I can go in here and change change it to connect to the lakehouse and test. Of course, this is a little tricky because when we use the connection string, we can get the server, but we need to set the connection to get the database ID. It's a little more challenging, but we can still get it. Ideally, I would like to see some kind of name mapping so that we can use a name instead of getting this IDs. But anyway, that's beside the point. But we can definitely change these settings. Okay. So yeah, so just a quick, this is what is available in the Microsoft site. So and this is what we noticed as well. Data flow, Gen 1, we can set the data source rule, parameters rule, semantic model, same thing. Data mart, we didn't check, we have paginated report, but key thing is in notebook, we can only set the default lakehouse rule. So within the notebook, if you're connecting to different data sources, you do not have the ability to set up a parameter rule for it. And going back to the test workspace, if I go into the lakehouse, I will not get any of the tables or schemas or any of those things that were available in my dev workspace. What is deployed is only the container. So none of the tables, none of the shortcuts or anything that you created in the development workspace is promoted to test. So that's something to keep in mind, which makes sense because you'll probably want to run your processes here and hydrate this lakehouse in your test environment or eventually in your production environment. So you would not want to bring in those artifacts or tables and files, but even you lose your shortcut, so that's something you need to reconfigure here. So if you look at this, what is supported for deployment pipelines, let's look at all the ingestion tools or artifacts that we use, right? Items that we use. Typically, it's either data pipelines or notebooks or data flows. Gen 2 is what we use in Fabric for any of the data ingestion operations. Now, as we see here, data pipelines is in preview. but it we right now there is no ability to use deployment rules. Notebooks is supported, which is awesome. But again, there is no ability to use parameters, and the same thing with Dataflow Gen 2 is not supported as well. So looking at this, what I feel is, deployment pipelines is good. It does, of course, it's in preview. There's a lot of things in preview. That's something definitely to keep in mind. But for an enterprise solution, I don't think it's there yet, because for any enterprise solution, we definitely need the ingestion mechanisms to be deployed as well. Not just the semantic model or the lakehouse. We want all like data pipeline and notebooks and Dataflow Gen 2 to be supported as well. So, there's been a lot of progress, but I think it's not ready for prime time in my mind. It definitely needs a little more work before I would use it as a solution or a deployment option in my enterprise solution. So that was my thoughts about deployment pipelines. Let me know what you think about it, and if you got any questions, obviance.com.